Now, let us learn about chemical reaction. Whenever a chemical change occurs, we can say that a chemical reaction has taken place. For example, when we burn wood, we get coal. In this reaction, coal is produced through burning wood, but we cannot get back wood from coal. With this, we understand that any chemical change is called chemical reaction. Let us see the important characteristics of chemical reactions, by which we can identify whether a chemical reaction has taken place or not. The important characteristics of chemical reactions are change in state, change in color, change in temperature, evolution of gas, and formation of precipitate. Why don't we see each one elaborately? The first characteristic of chemical reaction is change in state. Some chemical reactions can be identified based on change in state. For example, when a small amount of curd is added to milk and kept aside for some time without disturbing it, then state of milk changes to curd. Let us do an experiment for chemical change in state by burning magnesium ribbon, which forms magnesium oxide. Take a long magnesium ribbon and burn it. Magnesium ribbon starts burning with a dazzling white flame, leaving magnesium oxide powder. Here the magnesium ribbon is changed to powder. This reaction can be represented in the form of chemical equation. The word equation is magnesium plus oxygen on burning gives magnesium oxide. The chemical equation is. Let us see the second characteristic of chemical reaction, which is change in color. Some chemical reactions can be identified based on change in color. For example, oranges are in green color before ripening. Once they are ripened, they change to yellowish orange color. Please note that the color of the orange fruit changes from green to orange and cannot be reversed. Let us do an experiment for chemical change in color with dilute potassium permanganate and lemon juice. Take some dilute potassium permanganate solution in a test tube. It is purple color. Add lemon juice, that is, source of citric acid, to potassium permanganate drop by drop, and shake a test tube. The purple color of potassium permanganate changes to colorless liquid. This reaction can be represented in the form of chemical equation. The chemical equation is. Now we will look into the next characteristic of chemical reaction, which is change in temperature in gas. Some chemical reactions are characterized based on their change in temperature in gas. On boiling water, water changes to water vapor. When we heat water at 100 degrees Celsius, water changes to water vapor, which is in gas state. Do remember that the temperature of water change on heating by producing water vapor. Let's do an experiment for chemical change in temperature and gas with dilute sulfuric acid and zinc. Take some zinc granules in a beaker or conical flask. Add dilute sulfuric acid to zinc granules. Handle the acid with care. After adding dilute sulfuric acid, we observe bubbles of hydrogen gas formed around the zinc granules. If we touch the beaker, we can also observe the change in the temperature. This reaction can be represented in the form of chemical equation. The word equation is zinc plus dilute sulfuric acid gives heat plus bubbles of hydrogen. The chemical equation is. The last characteristic of chemical reaction is formation of precipitate. Some chemical reactions are characterized by the formation of precipitate. With this experiment you will be clear on formation of precipitate. By adding barium chloride acid to dilute sulfuric acid, we observe white precipitate of barium sulfate. Let's do the experiment. Take dilute sulfuric acid in a beaker. Add barium chloride to dilute sulfuric acid. On reaction, white precipitate of barium sulfate is formed. This reaction can be represented in the form of chemical equation. The chemical equation is dilute sulfuric acid plus barium chloride gives barium sulfate. Here note that precipitate is separation of solid from a solution.